Rob Maaddi from the Associated Press. He joins us right now on 97.3 ESPN. First of all, Rob, welcome in. How you doing today?
I'm doing great, man. Get ready for some playoff football. No time like divisional round. I love it.
Yeah, of course, people can hear all the games right here on 97.3 ESPN. Coming up after Mike Gill has his Power Hour from Ocean Casino Resort in Atlantic City from 3 to 4. Then we go to the football coverage coming up starting at 4 p.m. Also streaming on the 97.3 ESPN mobile app, powered by First Bank. See how, Rob, I want to start with the Eagles with you because you were in Philadelphia covering this team through different moments of drama, and it feels like this week has gone from first they lose, then all Eagle fans like, yay, they fired the coordinator, and now we have more A.J. Brown drama. And I know for you, Rob, there's probably a part of you that's kind of looking around being like deja vu, because it's Joe Salaquito reporting about the A.J. Brown drama, the same guy reported about the Carson Wentz story, what was that, 7 years ago. So, for you, how much do you think what's going on with the Eagles is it legitimate drama, or is it just, hey, when teams lose, the dirty laundry comes out?
I think there's a lot of drama associated with Philadelphia sports just by the nature of the coverage, the nature of the pressure on the athletes from the fan base, and just the intense scrutiny. And that can lead to great theater and a lot of great drama too. And sometimes it's always, not sometimes, it's always amplified when the teams lose, when the teams don't do well. A.J. Brown never did himself any favors by the way he reacted to certain situations, by the cryptic posts that came out, and even his comments himself when he spoke eloquently, I think, about the problems that the offense was having, that they can't just put a Band-Aid on it. And it turns out he was right. So I think his reactions, the way he has carried himself, and has kind of led to an even more intense scrutiny, and people are always going to find different ways to report information. So I don't doubt that A.J. Brown wants out of Philly based upon the way he himself has acted. It surprises me when something is reported that's contrary to what the athlete has said, or what the athlete has portrayed, or what the athlete has privately told other reporters or people in that circle. So when some of the things came out previously, and I knew for a fact they weren't true, that's one thing. In this particular situation with AJ, it doesn't surprise me at all that he's unhappy with his situation and that he would like to be somewhere else. And obviously there's a lot of salary cap ramifications, the dead cap hit. Now we don't know what the salary cap is going to increase to, but dead cap hit is dead cap hit. So there's a lot that the Eagles have to figure out. And what Howie said about AJ is exactly what I would have expected him to say. He's a great player. We're in the market for great players. And that's Howie. That's how he handles these things. And doesn't mean behind the scenes he's not going to look to see something or make a deal that can help the team somehow. There could be a massive restructure with the contract to maybe alleviate some of that cap relief on the Eagles. But the Eagles aren't going to sit still. The Eagles aren't going to do the Phillies made some moves, and they didn't get Bo Bichette, which was, really disappointing. But they're not going to run it back like the Phillies essentially are, and getting Adolis Garcia, right? And there's still a long way to go. And I know they revamped the bullpen, and it is what it is. But I wanted to see more there. But the Eagles certainly are not going to run it back. They're going to make some changes. They're going to try and improve the roster. And I believe Howie 100% when he says we're trying to win now and build for the future. That's what he does. That's what makes him one of the sport, not just football, but one of the elite front office guys in all of sports, no matter baseball, football, basketball, hockey, whatever you want to call it. So that's why he's one of the best, and he's earned that. He's earned that right. So I anticipate a lot of changes for the Eagles, and I think it would not shock me, would not surprise me at all if A.J. Brown's playing for a different team next year.
Well, also, I go back to 2021 when Howie said what he said about Carson Wentz, and then 2 months later they trade him. So, it's actually smart GMing to say, not say, not put a for sale sign immediately out front, but to work behind the scenes and get the deal done. Because let's be realistic, Howie's a wizard when it comes to the salary cap, Rob. Like, if anyone can make this deal work financially, it's Howie. I'm not worried about the financial implications. Howie, this is his wheelhouse, when it comes to this stuff. What I'm worried about is this offensive coordinator search. How is that going to impact this? Because, the report is they interviewed Mike Kafka today. They interviewed Zach Robinson yesterday. They're interviewing Zach Robinson because Kyle Pitts is going to be a free agent. Are they trying to get information about different kinds of offenses to work with Jalen Hurts? Like, I feel like the OC, that's going to make or break this team, not necessarily A.J. Brown moving forward.
I think the OC is definitely going to be an important hire. And I will say I was wrong about Patullo. I thought they're coming off a Super Bowl victory, and they should promote from within, keep some continuity going. And I thought that was going to pan out. And it didn't. It didn't work out. And some guys are cut to be in certain roles, and they're better at it. We see head coaches who are better off as defensive coordinators or offensive coordinators. And then likewise, you can see offensive coordinators and defensive coordinators who are better off handling one aspect of positional duties. So I was wrong there. And you're right 100% that the Eagles have to hit on this offensive coordinator. Right? And I think you're seeing I thought there was a little bit regression, obviously, in Jalen's game. And how much do you attribute that to Kevin Patullo? A little bit of that has to be on Jalen. A little bit of that has to be on everybody on the offense, has to take some of the criticism. I don't think you can put it solely on the OC, and I don't think you could solely put it on Jalen Hurts. But you need with 3 years left on his deal at $50+ million a year, you're going to need an offensive coordinator to come in here who can work with Jalen to the best of his strengths. And then maybe, we continue to hear, right? We continue to hear that there are certain things that Jalen isn't able or doesn't prefer, isn't willing to do, doesn't like to do, isn't comfortable doing. Maybe there's an offensive coordinator who can unlock some of that, because I don't know that you can have ultimate success, and they did already, and they won a Super Bowl, and he was Super Bowl MVP, but I don't know how long you can continue that, because teams, and certainly it didn't happen this year, teams are going to adapt and they're going to adjust their defensive schemes, and you have to do likewise. So if there are limitations on the quarterback, you perhaps need an offensive coordinator who can unlock some of that, who can help him feel more comfortable in some of those formations, some of those calls, some of that. I look at reading defense as just continual homework, right? Continual study, and you continue to hear about the struggles in that area. And you've got to have guys who are willing to put in that time. I heard a great story. I forget who it was. Was it Shady McCoy? Maybe recently was talking about playing with Tom Brady, and he said, we sit there in a team meeting, and the offensive coordinator is saying this, and the head coach is saying this, and then Tom calls a special meeting for the skill position players and says, the defense isn't going to do what these guys, what our coach is saying. And he breaks it down and sends each guy like voice memos on each particular player on defense and their tendencies and what they're going to do. And Shady's he's probably all day long at home studying this. So you can learn to read exotic defenses, standard defenses, traditional, whatever it may be, better. And I think working with an offensive coordinator can help him in those regards.
Rob, in this offensive coordinator search, how much do you think they're going to try to help Jalen out here and give him an offensive coordinator with some longevity in Philadelphia? Because the whole thing has been 7 different offensive coordinators he's had. Do you think in this search, a big part of it's going to be a guy that they can keep here year after year, rather than he's going to come in, be great, and then get a head coaching job?
I would hope so. I would hope so. And to me, that would lead me closer to a guy who's been a head coach and lost his job, because it's hard to get a second head coaching job in the NFL unless you're like a defending, you won a Super Bowl. Doug Peterson got another job. He won a Super Bowl. Nobody's beating down a door now for Doug Peterson again after just one terrible year in Jacksonville. Mike McCarthy won a Super Bowl, got another job in Dallas, had 3 12-win seasons, had no playoff success, and he's still trying to get another job. So a guy like Brian Dable, who's worked with Jalen, who's had familiarity with him, who's been a head coach, but I don't know that he'd be the hot candidate on the next coaching cycle, intrigues me more than someone who is a rising star candidate who could be a one and doneer. So I wonder, that's a great question. And I wonder how much of consideration that the Eagles will give that, because they continue to turn over the OC and Jalen's got to continue to work with a different guy year after year. And their success is obviously going to be, you start losing guys, the more successful you are. That's just the NFL. It's standard. It happens. But if you've got a guy in place who failed as a head coach and is comfortable in a coordinator position and maybe doesn't want to uproot his family, like I love having Vic Fangio as a defensive coordinator. I don't, as much as Vic probably deserves some interviews, he's not getting those interviews to be a head coach right now. And I think based on where he is in life and his relationship with the city and everything that goes into it, he's happy and comfortable there. That type on offense, I think, would be great.
Rob Maaddi from the Associated Press joining us here on 97.3 ESPN, at Rob Maaddi on the X platform, at The Real Rob Maaddi on Instagram. Rob, you just mentioned something about, the type of coordinator you bring in. And obviously the guy who makes the most sense of what you just described at the end there would be a guy like Frank Reich, a guy who's probably not looking for a head coaching job. But Frank Reich has not been mentioned in any reporting anywhere. All the names we're hearing are, we heard Mike Kafka was interviewed today, Zach Robinson, Mike McDaniel, Brian Dable. We're not hearing the old grizzled veteran. So it seems like the Eagles they're more interested in getting the best guy than they are interested in getting a certain type of guy, which seems to me like that's the way to go anyway, right? It's like, hey, let's not worry about if the guy leaves in here, which is how Roseman said that at the press conference the other day. He said, we're not worrying about that. So for you, is there a name that you've heard or seen so far that you're saying that's a guy that makes a lot of sense?
And I think in Frank Reich's situation, he's at the point in his stage in his life where he'd rather spend time with his family and the grandkids than the grind of it being an OC again. So I think that's why you're not hearing his name. Last I heard, he wasn't really looking to get back into. I know he did the thing at Stanford this year as a favor. To Andrew Luck, but I really don't think that he wants to do it. Like, my guy is Brian Dable. I like his fiery attitude. I love what he was able to do with Josh Allen. He had success with Daniel Jones his first year with him. People forget that the Giants that year went to the playoffs with Daniel Jones and won on the road against Minnesota, a good team with Kirk Cousins that year. So he did have some success early on as a head coach, and just the familiarity with Jalen Hurts. Now, from a selfish standpoint of, I think it would be fun, Mike McDaniel and his quirkiness in Philly would be like must-watch news conferences every week. That the coordinators in Philly do Tuesday, right?
Yeah.
Every Tuesday, like, you got to be locked in, because I would love to see the Philly media deal with a guy like Mike McDaniel to break down his every word, because he just goes on these like stream of consciousness, right? And he's just a different kind of dude. I think it would be so entertaining, just for entertainment value. And you know what? The guy knows how to run an offense and get a run game with a lot of his schemes and his looks and how to make that work. So it wouldn't be terrible from a football standpoint at all. I think that the run game could use somebody with Mike McDaniel's expertise. But, man, that would make for some entertaining news conferences.
One of the comments I made before you came on, Rob, was that I think part of the problem is that, people have criticized Jalen Hurts this year. They've criticized the offenses. The issues are Jalen Hurts' fault, right? And I want to play for you an audio from Nick Foles' season podcast, where Nick Foles is kind of on the same stream of consciousness I am, that a lot of this stuff should come down to coaching, and that if you want the quarterback to do certain things, as you mentioned earlier, you got to bring in a coach who can do that. I want to get your reaction, because you covered Nick Foles here in Philadelphia. Here's what Nick Foles said on his podcast, how he doesn't like the idea that people are saying Jalen Hurts can't do certain things.
I think there's some times where they're like, hey, we don't think he can do this. But then I would argue, you're a coach. Like, Jalen has shown the success he's had from high school to college, at both colleges he was at, Alabama and Oklahoma, to coming into the NFL as a second-round pick behind Carson Wentz, to now leading your team to 5 straight postseasons, 2 Super Bowls, a Super Bowl victory, Super Bowl MVP. Man, this guy wants to learn, and you never have all the answers. Even when I finished my career, I was always learning. You're always learning. But you need a great coach to teach you the ins and outs of the plays and the progressions.
I know it's not a popular take with certain people in Philly sports talk radio, but I think what Nick Foles said is very kind of on line with what guys like Brady have said, Rob, which is it's on the coach to put the quarterback in a position to have the success, not on the quarterback to just figure it out all the time.
Oh, absolutely. And I agree with what Nick Foles is saying. I deal with that on a very minor level as a coach. And sometimes I get frustrated because a girl can't do certain things in flag football. And I'm like, all right, I'm just going to put somebody else in who can. And then I feel like, well, I should teach them how to do it the right way, so you don't just dismiss it as you can't do it, right? So if Jalen Hurts can, and that's why the offensive coordinator position and hire is going to be so important, because maybe you get somebody in here who can unlock. So we know he's got immense potential. We know he's played at the highest level. He's been a Super Bowl MVP. He's been a MVP runner-up. He's been an Offensive Player of the Year finalist. He outplayed Patrick Mahomes in another Super Bowl and lost. He's got it. He's got all the tools. And if there are certain things that he just doesn't excel, and not every quarterback is going to excel at every area of the game. So you've got to work on those areas that you need him to get better at. And how does that happen? I mean, this is your job. These are your professions. That's what you're hired to do as an offensive coordinator, is teach the guy. It's not like you get an hour a week with him in practice like I do. You get every day out there on the field with him. And you've got to be able to and then beyond the field, you've got the classroom, the film study, and everything else. You've got to figure out a way to help him develop and become better in those areas. And I don't buy that somebody can't do anything unless he's got physical talent limitations, which we know he doesn't. So then you got to figure it out. And this is a crucial hire for the Eagles, because it's got so much to do with what Jalen looks like going forward. And I know people are floating out the idea of them potentially drafting a quarterback this year. Is there anybody who's going to be available when the Eagles pick that could be anything that remotely threatens Jalen? I don't believe that right now. Of course,
this is a very, very underwhelming draft class.
We said that, though, in 2020, right, when, Jalen Hurts is drafted in the second round. But Jalen was far more accomplished as a second-round pick than what these guys are right now.
Yeah.
And people were saying Tanner McKee, give me Tanner. And then look what happened when he stepped in.
Everybody loves the backup quarterback till he actually plays.
Yeah.
Exactly. Rob, real quick before we let you go, what is a coach opening you're still watching very closely and intrigued by outside of Philadelphia?
I think Atlanta's very interesting because they've got a lot of talent there. And I think some people oversell that talent, because despite all that talent, they still do have a lot of holes, like quarterback. You don't know if what they're going to do with Kirk Cousins. Penix is coming back off the ACL. You said Pitts is a free agent, but you got Bijan Robinson, who I think is an all-world player. You've got young rookies on defense who stepped up this year, who are developing. So I think there's talent there in a division that's ultimately winnable. Whoever steps into that Falcon situation could be another one of those first-year coaches who leads his team to a division title. And then, of course, the Raiders intrigues me because it's the Raiders, because there's Tom Brady's footprint on it right now. In which direction do they go? Is it somebody who's got familiarity with Tom and John Spytek and somebody who they've, whether it was in New England or some Michigan or somewhere else, that they've had relationships with? And the Raiders are such a storied franchise that have sucked for so long that I think it's important to, they got it for football. It's good for the Raiders to be good. Same as the Giants. And I think the Giants and the John Harbaugh hire is a home run. Unfortunately, Tomlin's not going to be coaching somewhere this year, but whenever he decides to come back, if he decides to come back, that's going to be certainly one that people are going to keep an eye out on too.
Tomlin's going to be amazing on television, by the way. I just want to put it out there. Like, he is going to be like the next TV star.
Yeah, and I'm looking forward to that, and I wonder how that's going to play out. I could tell you, and I would anticipate in an analyst role, like in studio analyst,
Right.
not in a game analyst. But certainly, I'm not looking forward to hearing a former Cowboys quarterback this week after his performance last week. And I'm not talking about Troy Aikman.
No, definitely not Aikman. He's safe from all. He's
He
safe
actually-
from the.
He does his homework. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. He's Rob Maaddi at Rob Maaddi on the X platform, Real Rob Maaddi on Instagram. All of his coverage at apnews.org. And, of course, don't forget about Faith on the Field, heard Saturday and Sunday mornings on 97.3 ESPN. If you miss any episodes, just search Faith on the Field on your favorite podcasting platform. Rob, always appreciate you jumping on and making the time for us.
Thank you, guys. Keep rocking.